this is Crowe.Studios, and guess what? I'm back for another rant. Today I'm going to talk about the wedding I did recently. It was a very stressful wedding because of the robbery. I had to use borrow lenses to get a lot of my gear. I had to get a new second shooter that I'd never used before. So I'm going to kind of tell you about how all that stuff went down. Starting with the second shooter. So I didn't end up going for the second shooter, as you already know, that shot my buddy's wedding. Unprofessional, didn't like her, probably never going to use her. So unfortunately I wanted to, but she wanted too much money for how little I was expecting from her. So I decided to go for someone that I honestly didn't know anything about, because I knew that finding someone random that has experience with photography has a higher chance of impressing me than someone who I know is going to disappoint me. So I ended up going for this second shooter named Mallory. She's been doing photography for not very long, about a year. But I did a couple photo lessons with her, got her ready for the wedding, and she was only able to stay for 6 hours. And I gotta say, when you're a photographer, I know you really want to make the bride happy and the groom happy, but sometimes you gotta put your foot down on some things. They told me that they were starting to get ready at 12, and they wanted us there at 12. But the wedding didn't start till 5 p.m. And that's 5 hours of just sitting around, because a solid 3 of those hours, just literally just standing there, because no one has their faces on, hair's not done, everything's a mess. You cannot get good photos out of that. Just maybe sometimes you'll see the kids do something cute when they're in the room, but that was all that was happening. So I did some pictures of things around the environment, the alcohol they were drinking, the shoes they were going to wear, the jewelry that was going to be worn. I tried taking advantage of what time I did have, trying to keep my creative mind going, because I knew if I just sat there for 5 hours, or 4 hours before stuff really started happening, then I was just going to be like, okay, bam, not really thinking about what to shoot next, because you become frazzled at that point of just things happening around you and nothing being, productive. But what bothered me the most about it was I said, hey, listen, I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. But the second shooter, she can only stay for 5 to 6 hours, whether it's early in the day or later in the day. Where do you want her? They said in the morning, and I didn't want that at all. And I should have said something, but I didn't, because I wanted to make the bride happy. And she could only stay for 6 hours, and the wedding didn't start till 5, and it was a 45-minute ceremony. So she just stood right there, and she didn't have a lot of experience doing weddings, so she wasn't taking a lot of pictures, and even during the ceremony, she didn't take a lot of photos. So I got 6 hours of her. I paid her to be there for 6 hours, and I only got about an hour of use out of her. So I should have put my foot down and said, listen, there's not enough going to be happening at 12 o'clock. Let her come at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3:30. Work something like that in there, so at least when she's there, it's the dresses are on, the hair's done. Then I could have got her for cutting of the cake, the garter toss, all the main reception events. I could have had second angles and stuff like that for that. But that didn't end up happening because I did not speak up. And you are the photographer. You are a businessman, and you have to let them know sometimes, because this is their first wedding. You got to know. You let them know what is it gonna take to be successful in the shoot. You want the best shoot possible. This is what we got to do. So you have to be respectful of their opinions. You have to honestly listen to them, but strongly suggest, if they have a bad idea, strongly suggest we don't do that. So we got ready, took as many shots as I could that were worth taking shots of, and the girls weren't even ready until about 4:30, and I took, what I ended up doing was I ended up taking every girl in front of a window, blowing out the window so it looked like they were in a white room. Did the same thing with the guys, so that way we had one uniform set of pictures of all the people standing up that are just them. I also got the bride and the bridesmaid together in front of the window. So you do have to be productive with your time, and you do have to make sure you use things in your environment to your advantage. Windows, doors, there's a lot of things. White walls, use that to your advantage. And just make sure you can use that to your advantage. If you use a white wall, you're using flash, and you're going to be casting shadows on that wall, don't even do it. Waste of time. Photos are going to come out terrible. Don't. You're better off getting them away from a wall, using a high aperture, low ISO, high shutter speed, and flash. Oh, sorry. Not high shutter speed, unless you have a certain type of flash. So that way you can black out that background, and you can get some low-key shots. That would come out great, because you don't want distracting backgrounds. Just something to think about. Use what you can to your advantage to be the best photographer you can. So, they all got ready. We got to the reception. Immediately getting to the reception, you know, we had to take a trolley to the actual shooting location because it was on the water in a gazebo. Got there, told the second shooter, listen, I want you standing here getting angled shots. Gave her the 70 to 200 I borrowed from Borrow Lenses. I took the 24 to 70 that I borrowed from Borrow Lenses. And I took the center shots because those are boring, and but they are important. So I wanted to make sure those were done right. And I had her do the candid shots because honestly, candid shots when you're a beginning photographer are easy because people usually lay it down on the fire button, or they're looking more for those candid shots than pose shots. Because honestly, in my opinion, posing takes more patience and more skill as a photographer to make them look good. If you get a regular person doing poses, they're going to be stiff, they're going to be big-eyed, and they're not going to look good in the photos. So I have the second shooter do the easier shots, and I do the harder shots, basically. So the ceremony happened. The pastor came up to me before the wedding and said, hey, listen, I know you're here to do a job, and so am I, but please be respectful of the ceremony process. And I've had that talk with multiple pastors. And what I do is I tell them, listen, don't worry about me. I'm not that type of photographer. I'm going to stand off way in the distance with a telephoto lens. You're not even going to know I'm there. Even though I'm really far away, I still put it on silent shutter. You won't hear me. You won't even know I'm there. And he's like, that sounds great. So I got in good with the pastor there just by telling him that. And I took some really awesome shots from a distance after I got the main shots of them coming down, and that part came out great. Anyways, and then immediately after the ceremony was done, I had to tell the second shooter, sayonara, and unfortunately she had to go, and I lost my second shooter. Now, what happened was, and this is the great part, was this wedding was recommended to me by someone that I did somebody else's wedding. And that person was at the wedding, that couple that I shot previously. And her husband likes cameras. Doesn't really have any experience with DSLRs. And so I set it up for him. It's like, listen, all you got to do is point and shoot. It'll do the rest. And he's like, oh, great. You know, I'd be happy to do this for you. I'll be your second shooter. You know, don't worry about me. You know, I'm sorry to hear about your second photographer, but I want to help you. Because I helped them, and they loved my photos. And honestly, he took some pretty awesome photos, and I was really surprised. So he had some really good gear, though. I'm not going to lie, he had some great gear. But really, it's the eye for photography that's important. So although I lost the second shooter that I was paying, I got a second body on the job because I did such an awesome job for their wedding. So you have to market yourself, and you have to put such a good impression on your clients, because if I didn't put a great impression on the clients, they probably wouldn't have cared. It would have been like, well, he sucked at my photos, I don't want to help him. So always do your absolute best job. Always be there as long as you can. You know, you're leaving that impression, and that impression could come back to help you later on in life. So the rest of the wedding happened. And things came out all right. I honestly thought I did a terrible job. I was leaving going, oh my God, I did a horrible, horrible job. But when I uploaded the photos to the computer, I was like, oh my God, did I take these? And that sometimes happens. You get frustrated. You can't let people see you get frustrated. You just do your best. Hide those feelings until you get home. Load them up on the computer, and you might be really surprised. You might be like, wow, these photos are great. I didn't realize I did that good of a job. And so you let that stress get to you, and you can't let that stress get to you. Don't let that stress get to you. If you start thinking, oh my God, I'm doing a terrible job because of you got there way sooner or way earlier than you wanted to, and you were already basically exhausted by the time the shooting started. If your second shooter leaves because they're out of time, you know, you cannot let those things stress you out, because they will affect your photography. And although the pictures came out great, honestly, they weren't my best work. And there was a lot of things that, you know, think I could have done differently, but I definitely felt like the value was there. Because, you know, you're always trying to improve, you're always trying to get better, and you look at these things as, wow, I could do this better. And it's important to do that, but you can't let that get you cannot let that get you down. Anyway, I've been talking for way too long. So I'm still editing the photos. I'll post some up on YouTube if you guys want to see them. You also check me out on my Facebook, facebook.com/Crowe.Studios. And, or just search it. You'll find me there too. I'm also taking questions on Skype. If you want to Skype me, it's Crowe, CROWE, dot, means period, studio. And add me on Skype and you can ask me questions. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this helps you for your weddings. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm a great resource. And as I always say, toodles.